Hey guys, welcome to On My Shelf. Today I'm talking about a helpful guide you can use for writing horror fiction. I've recently decided to write some kidlit horror, and I wanted to pursue some of the writing texts out there that could tell me how to do it, because I'm a scaredy cat and I can't really take reading horror. I have been reading some kidlit horror, which is much more palatable to me, but anything beyond what's written for about 12-year-olds seems to be too much for my imagination to handle. So I picked up On Writing Horror, a handbook by the Horror Writers Association, edited by Mort Castle. This is a collection of essays written by people who are involved in the Horror Writers Association. In the first part of the book, authors wrote about how they come up with their ideas and their individual writing processes, which might not seem too valuable to some people, but which I find completely fascinating. I love knowing other people's writing processes. But the authors also wrote about particular elements in horror fiction that readers expect, which I found incredibly helpful. They wrote about creating compelling characters, coming up with interesting concepts, what's needed for each subgenre of horror, tropes within the genre, classic horror versus new age horror, and the basic structure of a horror novel. It wasn't a step-by-step book for writing horror fiction, but I still took several thousand words of notes and also got a few great ideas while reading it, which is typically what happens when you spend time with the prose. One of the biggest takeaways from this book was how to avoid cheesy horror fiction. We've all seen it or read it. There are some stories that try so hard to be scary that they come across reading more like a farce, which is okay if that's what you're trying to do, but if you're trying to be scary, you need to avoid all appearance of farce. I'll pick and choose some of the techniques that were explored in this book, and I'm also planning to set up a brainstorm document specifically for horror writing, since it demands a different sort of brainstorm than something like fantasy, where you're building a whole imaginary world that doesn't exist. Unless you're writing horror fantasy, which could be pretty interesting now that I think about it. But like I do with most writing craft books, I'll take what I've learned and make it my own. I think any writer could do the same. I hope you'll check out On Writing Horror and continue learning all there is to learn about writing well. Be sure to visit racheltolson.com to see some of my best writer resource recommendations, and pick up your writer resources at thiswriterlife.com. If you have any questions about the craft of writing, creativity, or publishing, leave them in the comments and I'll answer them in future videos. For more On My Shelf, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.